The following program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.
Welcome to Thinking Out Loud TV. I'm Dan Toomey, and I will be your host. Drugs and deaths from drugs have become a major problem in most communities throughout the United States. And many communities have responded by using their existing resources to address the problem. And Nashua is one of those communities. One of the responses to this problem is called the Safe Stations Program. And this is kind of a new concept to me. You know, I was a firefighter myself back in the old days. And today we'll be talking to a couple of gentlemen about the problem, one in management, the other in labor. And so today we'll be talking with Assistant Fire Chief Brian Rhodes and with Nashua firefighter John McAllister. John is currently the president of Local 789, which is the firefighters union here in Nashua. Welcome, guys, and thanks for showing up on the show.
Thanks for having us.
Yeah, thanks, Dan.
Okay.
Great to see you.
Yeah. So I guess first I'll talk to Chief Rhodes. And I'm basically just tell us what the Safe Stations program is. How does, what is it? When did it start? Some of the details about it.
Sure. Well, first and foremost, I guess we have to give credit where credit is due. And Safe Stations was the brainchild of Chris Hickey, who was the EMS officer with the Manchester Fire Department. Okay. That's where the program started. They started to see a huge number of clients come into the program. Nashua had been working through the opioid task force, a collaborative of many groups within the city to try to come up with an idea, because Nashua isn't immune to this problem, just like every other community. But at the time, we didn't have the resources in place like they had in Manchester, i.e. We didn't have the licensed alcohol and drug counselors available. We didn't have transportation. We didn't have a location where if we wanted to refer someone to, other than the hospitals or the existing facilities that are in the community, but there was no agreements made. There were no understandings of any kind. Fast forward to when Jim Donchis was elected mayor, and Mayor Donchis really put this on the front burner. And he really wanted to do something. He came to the fire department early on with the idea and said, why can't we do this here? And for some of those reasons I just laid out to you, the transportation, the actual facilities, initially we said, well, we're not ready at this point. We can't, in good conscience, open the fire stations when we're here to provide a service to the citizens of Nashua already. And how do we say to a citizen who, maybe succumbs to a heart attack or their house is on fire across the street from the fire station, they're not available because they were taking care of someone from out of town who has a substance use problem. Not that we didn't want to help, but it was kind of a double-edged sword.
Just one quick thing, you said from out of town, so that means that somebody from out of town could come to Nashua, ring the doorbell and say, I've got a problem, and they would be taken care of.
We have had people from probably 30 different communities around the state. We've had people from out of state come in. It is not just for Nashua residents. We encourage anyone. So back to the beginning, we had conversations with John and the executive board, and to say, look, this looks like it's coming, and we need to be ready, and we want to try to head off any problems
Yeah.
right
Now,
off the bat.
I know why you would talk to John as a former firefighter, former union president, for that matter. But John is the union president of Local 789. He's also a working firefighter. Why would you talk with the union president?
Well, because that's how labor and management should be. This was an initiative that involves the fire department. I mean, we have to work together. Without the fire department, we don't have a union. Without the union, we don't have members in the fire department. So we need to work collaboratively, and this was something that was totally new to all of us.
Yeah.
And we just felt we needed to get some ideas out there and get some ideas from the labor group. How can we make this work? Yeah. And part of that was we had to get some awareness, we had to get some education, and we partnered with public health on that to because again we were used to dealing with people in the public when they called 911. This is a total different model. People are coming to us now. So there were some logistics to be worked out. There was just a lot to it before we could just say yes.
How long did it take you to get up and running?
How long did we talk? A month or two, maybe? Was it even that long?
It wasn't. It was probably a month once the commitment from Harbor Homes took effect. We've been talking longer than that about. Well,
just months rather than years.
Oh yeah, this was fast tracked. This really came because again, I digress a little bit, but our members were starting to see this on an alarming rate, seeing people dead and near dead, and it was starting to take a toll. Compassion fatigue is a real thing. And it wasn't good, and we started hearing more and more members talking about it, and seeing the run numbers pile up, and it was kind of, as you know, Dan, you're a retired firefighter, always a firefighter. Firefighters don't like loose ends. Firefighters don't like failing, and sometimes I think we felt we were failing.
And I retired in '91, but I was in the '70s and the '80s, and almost never did we see deaths from drugs. I mean, I heard of things like that, but it was relatively uncommon. It's not relatively uncommon nowadays at all.
No, unfortunately, I think there's a lot to, there's many, we could talk for hours on the reasons why, how did we get to this place, but I think one of the big reasons is the mixture of heroin today is not the heroin of 20, 30 years ago. It's mixed with fentanyl, which is deadly, and now, unfortunately, they are now mixing with a drug called carfentanil, which is 100 times more powerful than heroin, as fentanyl is 10 times more powerful than heroin. So it's deadly.
Yeah. So anyway, I want to get John into this. Now, I know we used to call you Rhodey when you were a private. Now
that's still me.
Chief Rhodes. And John McAllister is a private on the department now, and I worked with his father at Amherst Street. His father was a lieutenant at the time, and your grandfather was a firefighter.
Yeah.
And would have been your uncle.
Yep.
Your father's brother died in a fire down in Tewksbury, was it?
Tewksbury is the low gas explosion. Yep.
Yeah. Now, did your grandfather's father, was he a fireman?
No, he was not, no.
Okay, so it's just three generations for you.
Three generations.
But if you go to the fire station in Nashua, the names seem the same.
They don't change much.
The last names seem the same of the people that I worked with, So anyway, John, obviously this was a whole big change for people.
Yes.
Somebody comes to the fire station, rings the doorbell at 2 a.m.
Yeah.
Guys slide the pole, and what do they do? And how they responded to this?
At first, there was a lot of questions as far as wait a minute, we're opening our doors to these people who, are addicts that when we go out to a call and we go to these places and are helping these people, it's different. It's completely 100% different than when they're coming to our firehouse. So there's a lot of questions from our members as far as how we're going to be doing this. What are we going to be doing? Are we going to be counselors? Are we going to be doing this? Or how long are they going to be at the firehouse was a big question. How long are we going to be out of service? Well, yeah, we're out of service because it's a run. It's another incident that we're responding to. It's just they're coming to us. Yeah. But for the majority of the members, they understood. As the chief had talked about earlier, we were seeing it daily, multiple times a day, especially at the firehouse that I work out. Amherst Street Firehouse is another one, in Lake Street.
You work out of Crown Hill.
I work out of Crown Hill, yep, East Hollis Street, and we were seeing it 2-3 times a day. Yeah. So yeah, it was hitting a lot of guys.
Yeah, I'm trying to picture it. What it would have been like when I was on the job. So somebody rings the bell, they come in and they say, "Hey, I've got a problem," assuming that they're not under the influences at the time and having a life-threatening problem. But they come in and say, "I've got a problem. I need help.
Yep.
Can you help me?" Yep. What is, and Private Jones comes down,
yep.
and you call the whole crew down, or what?
Yep, the whole crew shows up, and we start the process. We welcome them in, ask them if they have any weapons on them, any drugs on them, or any drug paraphernalia. Yeah. If they do, we have a lockbox. We have them place those items in the lockbox, lock it up, put it away. Yeah. Once they come in, they sit down. We start asking them the last time they used, their name, where they're from, and then we take their blood pressure. We check their pulse, their oxygen level. We want to get a temperature if we can. While this is all going on by the privates, the lieutenant or the captain of the firehouse, the company is going to go make a phone call to Harbor Homes. So once that phone call is made, Harbor Homes now sends one of their drivers to that location.
At 2 in the morning?
At 2 in the morning, yep.
Whoa.
24 hours a day,
really
7 days a
changed.
week, yep. So,
wow.
And then once that phone call is placed, the lieutenant or the captain will then call fire alarm, place that company out of service, and they'll notify AMR. And so AMR will send an ambulance over to the...
AMR is the ambulance.
AMR is the ambulance city for the city.
Yeah.
So they'll come. Once they arrive, AMR will just double check the vitals and make sure that this person is okay to go with the safe station drivers. Once they fit in the criteria that we have, and they are, I guess we'll call it fit to go to the next step of safe stations, they'll then leave with the driver. If they're not and they have used within 2 hours, then we'll send them to Southern New Hampshire Medical Center or St. Joe's. Yeah. From there, they'll get cleared and then have to come back to the firehouse. Well, actually, we're still ironing that out, but they'll either come back to the firehouse or from there be cleared to go to Harbor Homes.
But the police are not involved at all?
Not at all, nope.
Okay, and that would make people...
I think
that would make them reluctant to ring the door of the fire
Yes.
bells and say, "Oh,
yep.
If I do this, I'm going to get arrested."
The only time we contact the PD is if they have weapons or drugs or paraphernalia, and then, like we said, we confiscate that, put it away. They come and pick it up.
So, as union president, have you had any grievances or labor disputes over this?
We have not had any grievances over this. No, I would not say any labor disputes. Many conversations about it. Yeah.
Well, that's the reason you don't have labor disputes, is because you talk about it, rather than having it imposed on you and then have it blow up when everybody doesn't understand one another. Yeah, so that's a good thing.
If I could pop in, Dan, that's the key to this whole thing, because it's new to everybody. I was a firefighter for 26 years before I became into the chief ranks. The chief was a firefighter for as long as time too. So we've been there and we understand that, and we understand, the issues that John would have trying to talk to his members if he didn't have answers to say what we're doing, because it's totally new. Totally new. Never did I ever think, and I'm sure John's the same way, that did we ever think we'd have a spot in that fire station that would be there for anyone to come in with a substance use disorder and say, I need help.
Yeah, well-
And I think, unfortunately or fortunately, this is a sign of the times, and it's not going to go away.
Yeah, it could never be envisioned back in the 70s or 80s at all. I mean, if somebody brought that up, we'd say, you're out of your mind. That's never going to happen. But it did. As a matter of fact, the chief, Gallipo, I worked with his dad, too. As a matter of fact, the first big fire I went to, a big fatality fire, was Willie Gallipo was riding the tail end with me, and it was up on Amherst Street back in 1970. So it's interesting, you know, the fire service has a tradition of being, you know, of a family, and then of course family members become involved in it as well. But it's kind of nice, you know, when I go in and I see O'Brien's and Morrissey's and McAllisters and the rest, and I probably can't think of them all, but every time I look at the roster, I say, I know that guy.
Sure.
I knew that guy.
Yeah.
So anyway, the amount of runs. When I was first on the job, we talked about it prior to the show. I joined in 1970. How many runs, you know, give or take, were there then? Meaning, you know, how many runs did the companies go out on? And then how many runs are there now?
I would have to say when you came on, Dan, probably about 1,500 maybe runs a year. Last year, Nashua Fire Rescue, the members responded to over 11,300 emergency responses, and that was a 30% increase over the previous year.
Wow.
And this year, we are already tracking to eclipse the 12,000 emergency response.
Wow. Now, again, you know, we were talking before. When I was in the Air Force, I was a medic, you know, and I worked in an intensive care unit, so I was pretty familiar with catastrophes and that. So we started, probably in the 80s, started doing ambulance calls, meaning that, you know, since we had stations throughout the city, for certain, like heart attacks or stroke or this and that, we were called first, and we'd get there before the ambulance got there. The guys on the job, we weren't trained to do anything like that. So they hated going on medical calls. They said, what am I supposed to do? I don't know what to do. You know, that's what the average guys, I was, you know, more comfortable with it, but you know, it was unusual because of my background. And now there are how many medical calls in proportion to, I mean, just a ballpark figure.
I think last year of the 11,300, I think we were in the ballpark of 58% were emergency medical calls.
Wow.
Which, when you look at nationwide, that's a low percentage compared to a lot of other places. They're up over 75 to 80%.
And by the way, when I was on the job, it was called Nashua Fire Department. It's, what is it called now?
Nashua Fire Rescue.
That's why.
It changed in the late 80s.
Yeah. So, you know, there had to be training then. You know, as I was saying, when I was on the job, guys hated it because they felt powerless when they got there. You know, they didn't quite know what to do and why we were there, just to make it look good, I think. You know, and I hope that one of the guys on duty knew a little bit about what to do. And but you must have trained the average firefighter as to what to do, or you know,
well,
procedures and
quite a few
policies.
years back, the job requirements changed, and now every member coming in the door must be an emergency medical technician minimum.
Whoa.
And must maintain that. So as far as John described, the assessment that goes on at the beginning, those were all basic EMT skills.
Yeah.
That go with that. And the as AMR is the transport provider for the city, they're a higher level. They're run up at the paramedic level. So that's why they come. You know, back to the beginning, we kind of missed a little bit, but there was a huge amount of work that went on to make this happen in this community.
Yeah.
And that's with AMR, with Southern New Hampshire Medical Center, with St. Joseph's, with City of Nashua Public Health, with the Mayor's Office.
Harbor Homes.
And Harbor Homes, last but not least, because we would not have this program without Harbor Homes.
Yeah. So anyway, you know, what does the training entail? How long is it? And you know, what does John, what do you do when you get there? I mean, for example, if somebody had a heart attack and you get pulled to the call, it's down on Spitbrook Road, and so the Spitbrook Road engine engine 3 goes down to the incident.
Yep.
They get there, they do what they can,
Correct.
and then the ambulance is on the way, right?
Correct.
And the PD as well.
Yep. The ambulance is dispatched along with the fire company at the same time.
Yeah.
In most cases, you know, the fire company is dispatched because we're strategically placed throughout the city, so we get there a lot quicker than the ambulance.
Yeah, that's
So we get there and we start the assessment in medical care.
right.
AMR is shortly behind us. Fortunately, in the district I work at, they're right behind us.
Yeah.
Some other districts, they might be a few more minutes outside.
How many places, you know, stations does the ambulance company have? Just one?
Just one.
And it's it used to be by City Hall.
It is now on at West Hollis Street at Simon Street. Thank you. Right there. If you, as you're going up over the overpass, you look on your right-hand side. The AMR's.
Isn't there a gas station up there?
Well, was the old, do you remember where, I don't know, back in the day if it was that the Lafayette?
The Hook and Ladder.
Original, then it became the Hook and Ladder Club.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's directly across the street from, back in the day, Edgecombe Steel.
Yeah.
So it's on the dead end portion of West
Oh,
Hollis
okay.
Street.
Yeah, I know where that is. Yeah. And so they come out of there. Well,
They
there's,
come out of
you know,
there,
there's 35 square miles in the city of Nashua. And so, you know, I think Lawrence is like 7 square miles. You know, and so it takes a while to get to some of the runs.
Yes,
you
it
know,
does.
if you're coming out of central Nashua. And
This is a completely different community, Dan, than when you first started here.
yeah,
The traffic is incredible, the congestion, the amount of hustle and bustle, it's amazing. It's changed incredibly.
yeah, yeah. So anyway, tell me some war stories. You know, we used to sit around the fire station and make up stories about how we were heroes back in the day. So, but no, really, so, you know, some of the things that have happened. You know, can you talk about some incidents?
Yeah, I mean, they're all different. I mean, if you're talking about, and I assume the safe stations directly, it's a different type of call, and it is a call because, I mean, they're coming to us, but it's different because they walk through that door. The second they come through that door, that's, as in their mind, my treatment starts now. Yeah. So my recovery starts now. So they walk through that door, and we're part of that. So after we get the vitals, there's about a good 10-minute lapse of time that we're waiting for their ride to arrive.
Yeah.
They start talking to us. They start opening up, and explaining why they started using heroin, or you know how good of a life they did have, and now they've hit rock bottom, and they're saying to themselves, I need this now, and they're coming through the door and looking for help.
Good that's happened. Has any violence ensued or anything like that in any of the stations?
I don't believe, I have not heard of any.
Good. And so that, you know, so the men have been trained so that they know how to deal with people that come in, you know, not being judgmental and you know, handling people in a respectful way, I'm sure.
Yeah, we had a training right before this started through the city had put on a training for the members to exactly how to handle the counseling side of this and supportiveness of this. But I mean, for the most part, firefighters have been caring individuals always, and it didn't matter if they were knocking on the door for this or anything else. Even when you were on the job, Dan, they rang the doorbell. You guys helped. Yeah. It didn't matter if it was filling a little kid's tire on his bike or if they needed help, legitimate help. So the guys have done a great job. They've been fantastic with opening opening their arms essentially and letting these people in and working with them and helping them out and being supportive. Last week we were at an event put on by David Gilmore, who just kind of a forum as far as what's going on with the safe stations, and there was 2 individuals there that have been through the safe station program, and both of them in their lecture, in their explanation, said the reason why the safe stations work is they're not judged. They're not being judgmental, which I think is, our members don't get enough credit for that, because they are coming through the door and they're not judging them. They're not saying, you know, oh, you can't get help here. You can get help here.
Chris Staywas is involved, right?
Chris is the general manager for AMR in Maine and New Hampshire. Yes, Chris was integral in getting this to Nashua.
The reason I bring that up is because when I worked at the department, Chris used to step by as a teenager. And,
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah. He was interested in ambulance service more than fire at the time, if I remember right. But him and his buddy with Stilianos used to come in and talk with us. But I remember him as a kid, and I remember you as a kid, because I remember you were that high.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, so we've got about a minute left. Do you have anything you want to say, to elaborate on or any of the needs that the department has, or any any way that people could reach somebody, or anything you want to talk about?
I just think that in my 30-plus years with the city, this is the greatest collaboration I have ever seen, with public-private partnership, with labor and management. The way everyone has come together, this is a society problem, a societal problem.
Yeah.
It's not just a Nashua problem, but part of the reasons why Nashua is such a great city is because we have great employees who are doing what it takes every day to try to tackle this problem.
Okay. So anyway, my name is Dan Toomey, and I'm the host of this show, Thinking Out Loud. And so this will play in Nashua, and it will also play in Lowell, because I'm going to have it playing on, and you can also see it on YouTube. So I want to thank you, gentlemen, for coming here and telling us about this really important program. And thanks for being here.
The preceding program was provided by an independent producer solely responsible for its content. The opinions expressed do not necessarily represent the views of this station, its staff, board of directors, or underwriters.